Hello and welcome to Beach View, our podcast about different things and/or stuff.
Hello, today we're going to be talking about AI art, a bit of a controversial subject.
Yes. So this is like a big conversation in 2022, and I imagine it'll continue in this year.
Yeah.
How familiar are you with this topic?
So, I first came upon it when a Facebook friend was posting images and he was saying, "Isn't this cool? I can make this art with just using a few keywords." And he just kept posting and so I was intrigued. So I was like, what is this? So I started kind of looking stuff up a little bit. But that's the extent of my knowledge. I know a little bit about it, but I know what the controversy is, but
Okay.
I don't know specifics. I'm not an expert.
So,
yeah,
I want to preface this, I'm not an expert either. I probably know more than you do, but
yes,
that's
probably
not saying a lot, This isn't my area of expertise, so.
Just two people having a conversation about this
Yep.
subject that has been taking over the online conversation.
Yeah, so, basically, it's a computer program, machine thing, and you type in a prompt, and it makes an art based on that prompt. So, you type in, a waterfall or something, and you get back a picture of a waterfall. Which, as far as I'm aware, is new, to 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've seen big advancements in this sort of, AI technology for the past several years. AI-generated texts have been around for a while. Stuff like the YouTube auto captions have been around for a while. But to my knowledge, 2022 was the first year there were publicly available, art generation.
Yeah.
And previously, most of your art stuff was, either recognizing things and, saying what they are, a picture of a cat. The AI will say, this is a cat.
Right.
Or basically just fancy Instagram filters. You feed in an already existing picture and it spits out something different.
Right.
Again, this is to my knowledge. I could be wrong about this, but this conversation only really picked up in the past, year or so, and I don't recall seeing this kind of thing previously online.
Yeah, I think as far as the its reach, like you said, it may have started before then, but I only started seeing it, and again, I'm not kind of in the same online, hemisphere as you are probably, but I started seeing it probably the last 6 months of 2022. And that, like I said, prompted me to kind of look up, how is this being done? And I think you're right. I've never heard of public, open generators that people can use for free. I hadn't heard of that before 2022.
They've had those for text, which have been getting slowly better, but I think that's first year that it's been available for art.
For images, yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, not an expert, but as far as I understand it, the way these things work is that they're pattern recognition machines, as they feed a bunch of data into one, and it, analyzes that, determines the pattern, and then spits something back out based on what it's been fed.
Right. And so I did learn that, there are these publicly available databases too. I think there's a nonprofit group that makes data sets available for AI art generators, which I thought was super interesting. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So a group took the time to put all this together, and then other generators can use those data sets.
Yeah. So this was a big conversation in 2022, and artists seem to be very mad about it.
Yes.
Personally, I don't have a lot of strong opinions because I'm not a visual artist, and despite the technology being new, I don't think the issues it presents are new. The problems that artists have with these, I feel are already problems that existed. This is just a new expression of that.
I agree. Yeah, this is where the controversy comes in. So, we kind of saw similar conversations with NFTs when those became big, and I think this is another iteration of the digital art conversation and the beef that artists have with their artwork, or I guess their adaptations of their artwork too, as far as copyright goes, right?
Yeah.
Or owning, I don't know even know if it would be a copyright thing, but basically their artwork being picked off as another person's art in a different way.
Yeah, so the main arguments I've seen against it fall into three camps, generally. First is like you mentioned, like copyright issues and sort of like a theft thing. The second's loss of work and money. And the third is like about definitions of art. So the first argument, a lot of these AI art projects pull from already existing art. Again, as I understand, that's how this technology works.
Mm-hmm.
However, in a lot of these cases, these projects aren't getting permission from artists.
Right.
And a lot of people are mad about that. That, they're putting stuff up and other people are taking them for use in this, and, whether or not that violates copyright, or, even maybe if it doesn't, it should, because that feels like theft to them.
Right. It's a very fine line, I think. And we've seen this over the years, not just in digital art, but, anything that's out in the public, whether the artist owns the rights to it or not, can be taken and utilized in a different way. And so it's the whole argument, the fine line between infringement or inspiration. You know what I mean?
Right. And I think here in particular, it's for inspiration, if someone's looking at your, a human's looking at your picture and then drawing something similar to it, that's considered less of a copyright thing than if someone because the way these work is they have to be fed the image itself. The image itself is being used in a way. I think that's the thing that people are getting mad about.
Yeah, their image is actually taken and used for. It's basically the way the AI learns, right? It takes all that data, and so the image is part of the data set.
Yeah, which I think is a reasonable complaint.
Yeah.
That people don't want their art to be used in that way. I mean, I don't know legally what that counts as. I don't.
Right.
Copyright law is already complicated, and I'm not a lawyer, so.
Especially digital, it's a whole other realm, and it's kind of like an artist, if they don't want to be a part of it, will sometimes have to face oh, can I not share my art then? You're stuck between keeping your art to yourself and not sharing it, or sharing it and having it potentially be used in this way.
Yeah, which is the thing I've seen artists talk about, is being worried that they have to take down their stuff, especially because some art platforms have been trying to push for AI art and auto including people in AI data sets without their permission. So which, yeah, again, reasonable complaint. The thing I think is not new about this is that theft of art, particularly digital art, is not a new problem.
Right.
At all. I've seen over the years on the internet tons and tons of people, companies, whatever, taking someone else's art and using it without their permission. And this becomes an issue because in a lot of cases artists don't have a lot of recourse if they don't have the money to hire lawyers. Right.
Yeah, it's very hard to get that back or to get paid for your contribution.
Right.
If you're just, a random digital art or visual artist, you have some work out there, you discover that, someone has taken it to use as their own basically, and you have hardly any resources to depend on in order to get compensated for that. So that is where, it's so tricky. And I don't envy those people because I'd be well, what do you do,
Yeah, but I mean, this is an already existing problem, whether it's AI art taking the data set.
Right.
Or if it's I've seen celebrities just find random art and start using it for things, and
right.
Unless they can get up the money to hire lawyers to sue, their recourse is basically to make a fuss about it online and hope that the celebrity sees it and stops using your art.
Exactly.
And that would require changes in how copyright functions. A suggestion I've seen to solve these sort of issues is a exclusive copyright small claims court sort of deal.
Yeah.
That would be affordable to, average people and not just companies to make use of copyright, but that's not a thing that currently exists.
No, definitely not. Yeah, and I think we had this conversation before on our podcast where we talked about artist, but not specific to this particular subject. But, as someone who enjoys seeing people be creative and creating new things, I would think as an artist, and this is just, my point of view, I definitely understand the argument here, but I would love to see somebody take what I created and make something new with it. Like, I think that's just like what happens in the creative process. Like, and I think that's awesome. But at the same time, if you're an artist trying to make a living from your art, that can be very, harmful to what you're trying to do and to your actually being able to make a living off of that. So I get the argument. At the same time, I do get excited about seeing, art being used in a different way. So it's really hard. It's one of those conversations that's like, I guess I can't weigh in because I am not a digital artist. So my opinion here, just take it with a grain of salt,
Yeah, but I think the argument is that there's a difference between, like, a transformative work that, like, another artist is doing and, like, what AI art might be doing, where, theoretically that could, like, they could take your work and that would serve as a replacement for it.
Yeah.
That they can, like, make new things, without you. Which gets into the second argument that, this is going to result, and in some cases already has, resulted in a loss of work or money for artists.
Right, which is also hard to prove. I mean, like, you have to prove that, as far as I understand, and as I understand it too, it's hard to prove. So it's like, artists don't really have a good leg to stand on here, I feel like.
Oh, really?
That's how I feel. I mean, like,
Okay.
how do you prove,
Well, so these AI-generated artworks aren't perfect. I don't know how many of them you've seen, but they definitely have, like, issues. Like, some of these you can look at and tell a human artist would be better.
Yeah.
Which, like, a really big thing they struggle with is hands for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but they don't know how many fingers should go on a hand.
I did not know that. So, actual, like, painters and stuff and people who draw, like, struggle with hands sometimes too. So I think that's so funny.
They're not going to put 12 fingers on a hand, though.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting because it's like, how, like, in the, immense technology that we have at our fingertips, pun intended, like, how do we not get AI to recognize the number of fingers on a hand?
Right, which, that's, even though it's not perfect, it is much faster and cheaper than a human would be. And in a lot of cases, because of that, is good enough. So the concern is that, like, companies, particularly smaller ones, that would have previously hired an artist are going to start using AI art instead, which will lead to loss of, getting work in the first place, and when they do get work, potentially a loss in the amount of money they're being paid because they're competing against AI art, which would drive rates down. It's much cheaper.
Right.
And this isn't a field that already has problems with money, so, like, it's a very big concern for artists.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And like I said, they do have legit arguments, but at the same time, is this one of those things that, like, is going to be hard to fight? Or are there people making moves that are making it better for artists?
Right, yeah, and that's, like, because, like I said, this is already a field that has problems with money, and I don't think, like, I think AI art is merely, like, a new expression of that, not, like, a new thing, and to me, like, the problem's the same regardless, and the solutions would be the same in many cases regardless of the existence of AI art or not.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. You said you don't think they have a leg to stand on here because they can't prove it. Do you mean, like, legally, or?
Yeah, I think legally. So this is where I'm coming from. Like, legally, it's hard to prove loss of work.
Right,
because it's hard to quantify, like, what you may not have received because of this, because that's a big question mark. Like, you don't know what could have come to you in the form of payment for work. And so that's what I'm saying. Legally, I feel like these artists don't have a leg to stand on because that is extremely difficult to prove. But from the artist's point of view, like, they're like, you're causing me to not get jobs
Right.
from this. And I totally get that, but legally, how do you prove? And that's notoriously been something that's hard to prove in all kinds of cases, like defamation cases, et cetera,
Mhm.
where you can't really like prove that. You have to have, I think something more, and that's what's really hard for artists. Like you said, it's already an area that is just like riddled with like, I don't want to say infringement, but I think it's such a hard space to be in for an artist. I mean, I can imagine. And like I said, I'm not an artist, so I'm not positive about that. And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
speak from their point of view, but as I can imagine, it must just be very difficult. But at the same time, like, I do think this technology is pretty cool. Like, it's just another kind of like, I don't want to say toy, but you know what I mean? Like another way of creating art. And I think that's cool in itself, that we have artificial intelligence that can make something, that can be appreciated as art. I don't know. I just think that's such a cool thing. But I get the whole controversy around it.
Yeah, I don't think most artists, though, are thinking about this, like, legally, that they're gonna start suing AI art projects and stuff like that, or companies that use them.
Gotcha.
I think it's more like a broader argument that, like, this represents a loss of income.
Yeah, I could see that, but I mean, I think that's with every art, like every art form. Like, I don't know. To me, that's just such an ambiguous argument because it's like, well, I could be making money from this. Well, I mean, can you? Like, you don't really know.
Well, I think the concern is that people that already, like, get jobs doing commissions and, like, getting hired by people to make art, are going to start seeing some of those, people, instead of going to artists, go to AI art.
Yeah.
Because it's faster and cheaper.
I wonder if that has happened already, like if they've seen a big change
Right,
in their utilization. Yeah.
Like, I'm not a visual artist, so I wouldn't know. I do know, like, I've seen some, news, how, like, when they post stories online, they always include a picture with them?
Yes.
Like, I've seen some of those use AI-generated art.
Yeah, same.
And some people saying that, like, who would commission an artist for a, like, piece of artwork that they want, like a digital artist, are now being like, I'm going to just go make an AI art. And like you said, it's hard to prove that they were going to commission an art in the first place. They might have just said they were going to and then never did, but,
Yeah, but I mean, the argument on the other side, too, is that anything that makes art more accessible, I think, is awesome. So that's, you might have a company or whatever, or an individual that, wants to have this art for some use, or, needs to have this for whatever reason and are unable to pay an artist to do it. And so, like, having this option, I think, is good too. So it's just kind of like, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy the accessibility argument.
No?
Just, I don't know, it seems like you can already make art. Like, that's something everybody can do,
Oh, yeah, but not, like, I can't make art the way other people can make art. You know what I mean? Like, so if you're like a small business or, like I said, an individual and you need art for some project and you don't really have the means to pay an artist to do it. I mean, designers are expensive.
Yeah.
Like, graphic artists are expensive. Like, I can see, I mean, and I do work with graphic artists, so I know, like, from that point of view, I mean, I'm not making digital art, but I can see how it could be, like, I can't just bust out some artwork. Like, that's just not my talent.
Can.
You know what I mean? Not for a business. Not something that needs to look professional.
Not of enough quality, yeah.
Yeah. So I get it from that point of view. I think that's awesome.
I don't know. I just feel like, because that, like, if people are going to start doing that, I guess, like, if before they couldn't afford it, then they wouldn't do that. But, like...
Well, I mean, like, I have a friend who started a business and, she made her own logo and because she didn't want to pay, graphic designer to make a logo. And, I mean, it's not the same caliber. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like, you know, that's you're not just going to see businesses that couldn't afford artists before. You're going to see businesses who see this as an opportunity to cut costs, and that cuts artists out.
Yeah, I see that too. And I'm thinking more of the individual small businesses.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking like corporations or anything like that. You know, trying to make money by, you know, doing this at the expense of artists. I'm seeing like individual people who don't have the means to do so.
I mean, there are, though, individuals that do have the means to pay. You know,
sure,
like
yeah.
I think YouTube channels and stuff like that who do that a lot, commission artists a lot for their different sort of art, both like drawings and like graphic design stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, that's like a cut costs thing. You know, if you can get like AI art to do it, then you don't have to pay an artist that you previously did.
Yeah. Well, it's like Canva, like to make flyers and stuff like that. You can get that for free. And otherwise you would be paying a graphic designer, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the same kind of thing, I think. Is it going to be the same caliber as what you're paying, you know, a talented artist? No.
Yeah.
But it's doable. It's usable.
Yeah. And, like, you know, again, I don't think this is a new thing. I think, like, businesses are constantly trying to cut costs wherever possible, and if they can cut costs from artists, they will do that. And,
Yeah.
you know, you see tons of stories of people, like, trying to underpay artists that they hire,
Oh,
you know,
for
like,
sure, yeah.
constantly haggling to get the price lower, or the people who, like, try to, like, for exposure artists is like, I'm not gonna pay you, this will, like, boost your career or whatever.
Yes. I agree with that.
So, like, you know, I don't think this is new, but I do think that, like, it's a pre-existing problem that AI art is, like, pushing on. And, I mean, you know, the solution will look something like a society that values art more and, like, allows artists to do it for a living more.
Yes.
Which, like, I don't know, probably involves, like, some manner of, like, more government funding for arts that, like, we don't really have in America.
Yeah.
Like some other countries do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know I mentioned before, like, I'm so glad that I live in a region that really values art and the culture, you know, how the artists add to the culture of the city and the surrounding area. Like, I love that, but it is increasingly hard for an artist to make a living, you know? So,
Yeah.
especially with stuff like this. So, yeah, I definitely understand that. I wish we could make it easier for people to pursue the arts as a career.
Yeah. So, third argument, which is some variation of like AI art is soulless, or like it doesn't come from humans and thus doesn't qualify as art. And this is like a definitional argument. Like, to me, this isn't like real issues, it's more of like, you know, another what is art question.
Absolutely. And that's something that is subjective to every
Right.
person, you know?
Yeah, and there are like softer and harder versions of this. Like, some people define art in such a way, you know, like arguing for excluding AI art entirely, like just categorically, because to them art is about like expression, and, you know, AI's not expressing anything, it is just like regurgitating patterns, and a human is trying to like express things. And some people are a bit softer on this, making a similar argument, but like just being uninterested in AI art because of that, because there's not like the human element.
Yeah.
You have any strong opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I don't ever see like AI art as being the complete future. You know what I mean? I think there's a place for it, and I think there's a place for actual, you know, people who are artists. So I think it's not going to take over. Like, in my opinion, like, I don't feel like we will ever do away with actual artists, because not everyone will have the ability to create AI art. You'd be surprised. I work with a lot of people who need art in some form just within my job, and they have an idea of what they want, but it's hard for them to express what they want. So just coming from that point of view, I don't think everybody's going to be able to be an AI artist and get what they want from it. So I think that people are never going to be fully replaced by AI. So Just my opinion, throwing it out there.
Well, I mean, I think regardless, like, people are still going to create, be creative, even if it's
Yeah,
as a hobby.
absolutely.
I don't think that's, like, ever been in question. The issue is, like, can you do this as a living?
Yeah.
Which, like, that's what those other two arguments are about. This one's more about, like, should AI art count as art?
I mean, I think so. Art is art. I mean, that's such a hard definition. Like, this is something that people have talked about forever.
Oh,
That
yeah.
what makes art art,
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I mean, I think AI art is art. It is whatever you want it to be, however you interpret it.
Yeah, and I think, like, it objectively is art. I think you can argue, it's bad art inherently because of, like, you require human expression to be part of art. But to me, that's not, like, that doesn't make something not art. And I don't, like, view art from that perspective. Like, my perspective on it isn't that it's about intention, it's that it's about experience. Like, what is experienced as art is more important than, like, what the, like, creator intended. Because I think if you start going down the, like, intention route, you start leaving out things that, like, does stuff animals do not count as art then? Like, do they, because
Right.
they're, not human, or is that, like, count enough? Like, does a bird's song count as music because there's enough intention behind it from that perspective, or, does it not?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And what about, like, definitely unintentional things? Like, maybe I'm just weird, but I've certainly heard wind and rain, or even, like, washing machines as musical before.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever seen August Rush?
Yeah, and that has, like, no intention behind it, just, like,
Right.
sometimes the wind blows against, something and it kind of sounds like a note.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying. Like, anything can be art to anyone,
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with your argument there.
Yeah, some people have definitely said, AI art is not art. So,
That's just goofy. I think that's super goofy.
yeah. Or that it's, like, soulless art, which, I mean, there's, like, human created art that is soulless, Like,
Yeah,
not every piece of
absolutely.
art is, like, worth something.
Yeah, exactly. You can call anything art if that is how, someone takes it in, Like, I think it's silly to say that AI art is not art.
Yeah. But that is an argument people have made, so figured I'd bring it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, what about, because so far I've only presented arguments against, what about, like, defenses of it?
Yeah, what about it?
Which you brought up one is, like, accessibility.
Yeah.
That's one people have made.
I think, yeah, accessibility. I think I am a fan of anything that has a creative component to it that anybody could use, pretty much. Not to say that what they create is going to be, spectacular, but again, that's subjective. But I think it's another tool. It's just like another way that people can create art, or they can share their creative expression with others. So I think it's just a tool that can be used. I like it. I mean, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, that is one of the things people have made for it, like, arguments people have made in favor of it, is that, like, this can be useful, this can do interesting things, and, there are, like, uses on larger projects for artists to, like, speed up their work, is to use some, like, AI-generated stuff. They feed their own artwork into it to, like, finish out a project or something.
Yeah, and I think that's cool. I think it's really neat that they do that.
Yeah, and some people are like, yeah, I think this has uses, and it's unfortunate that, like, one of the ways this gets used is basically to screw over artists. And then you get some people who are like, no, this does have uses, and people should stop, like, railing against it.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, like, there should be some kind of, like, opt-in for people's art to be used as part of, data sets. But at the same time, like, I don't think this is a bad thing. But again, like I said, I'm not a digital artist, but I think it's a cool tool. Like, it's not going to replace digital artists, in my opinion. And, I think it's just like something fun for people to do. I mean, like I said, my Facebook friend who is not an artist is like sharing these things he created and he's like excited about them. And I think any part of that creative process is a fun thing.
Yeah, so one thing people argue against that thing you just said is, like, they didn't actually create anything. If you go in and, like, just type a prompt up and a machine generates it for you, you're not actually creating anything.
I mean, I don't get that argument because you can make music by taking pieces of music that other people have already created, and you can put that together to create a new song, So
Yeah, but you're not typing in, jazz, hip-hop, electronic drum.
How are you not, like, typing in, like, jazz notes and then putting that into your piece and saxophone and putting that into your piece? To me, it's the same exact thing. Like,
I don't...
You know what I mean? Like, you can type in, get samples of stuff and slap it together and create a new song. Is it going to be good? We don't know. But that is something that somebody else already created. Or it's like when artists, like musical artists, sample other people's songs in their music and create a whole new song. To me, it's the same thing.
I don't think that's the same thing. I think that requires, like, an actual skill and, like, an actual, like... You're not just typing into a computer, you're assembling things. Like, collage is not the same thing as telling a machine...
Are you...
Like, to me, that's the same thing as saying I created something because I searched it on Google.
But if you're using specific keywords that you're putting into the generator and you're creating a certain mood or a certain image or a certain, feeling that you want, like, to me, that is part of the assembly. Like, I can go in and say waterfall and it'll just give me like a basic waterfall, whatever. But an artist or somebody more talented than I could go in and say, waterfall, whatever, Gaussian blur, like whatever. You know what I mean? Like all these different graphic terms and get something totally different. So I do think it requires like skill, not necessarily skill, but I think different people are going to get different things out of it. So I do think they're creating something new by using, there's so many different ways and patterns and keywords that you can use. Whereas my waterfall looked different from your waterfall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that act is a creative one. It's, semi-creative, it's, curation. Like, I think curation is a thing. I don't, think it's necessarily the most creative thing, and that's certainly what you're doing, to an extent when you're doing AI art, but, I don't know. I don't think, it's the same thing as even, remixing, or, assembling a new song whole cloth out of, old pieces.
It could collage. It could be, though. I think there's the potential for it to be the same thing.
I don't think
you're
so,
thinking
no.
of just, me sitting there and typing in and creating an image. I'm thinking of, people with skill and talent, sitting there and creating a specific... I'm thinking of, a person sitting there and putting in specific things to create what they visualize. And I do think that is creative. I do think it's part of the creative process.
Okay, do you think commissioning an artist is creative, then?
I think it depends. It depends, because some people have a vision. Okay, they have vision. That is their skill. That's their talent. They have vision for what they want, but they cannot execute it. It's kind of like a coach, right? They know what they want the players to do. They can't do it themselves. I think that is some people's talent, and it's a creative talent. They have the vision of what they want. And if they ask an artist, they say, I want this to look like this. I want this to look like this. This is the feeling I want to get from it. This is what I want, and then the artist then interprets that into their work. Then that is part of the creative process to me. Because, I might say, I want a portrait of my cat wearing a tuxedo, whatever. Whereas if I just said, I want a portrait of my cat, you know what I mean? You'll get different things. The artist is not going to take my vision and create it unless I give them, I feel like...
I don't think that's creative, though. I think that's a creative act.
I think it's part of the creative process. I do think it's part of the creative process. So If I'm leading you to do this and you are the artist and you make it and it's amazing, but I gave you the direction, I am part of the process.
I think unless you are, like, doing some part of assembly, like you are a director in a larger project, and you're using those pieces of art to create an ensemble piece, that's when you start getting creative. If you're just, like, typing in, hello artist, I want cat with tuxedo, I don't think that's, like, a creative thing.
I think it's creative. You have the vision, and who am I to say, what's creative and what's not? But I do think that there is room for both in this AI world. I think that you can be creative and create AI art. You're creating it. Like, I think like it's your words, your text that's creating it. So I do think you're part of that creative process. In my opinion.
This feels like a monkey and typewriters sort of deal.
I mean, look, we just have different ideas about it.
Yeah.
But, and look, the bulk of the creativity here lies in the artist's work that is being utilized in the data sets for these AI generators. I do agree with that. But I do think that you can be creative and do this.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not sure how much that matters ultimately, but like...
Yeah. It's a good conversation though, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, the arguments for it though. It offers people new creativities, there's useful things you can do with it, and the, like, arguments are, like, against that is whether or not, like, it doesn't matter if it's useful if it's screwing artists over.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, I think they're here to stay. Like, I don't, I don't know that there's much recourse that anybody can have.
I mean, I don't like those arguments in general just because of, like, I don't know. I don't like arguments for inevitability just in general. 'Cause that seems to me like a you should give up sort of argument.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, yeah, so that's, AI art. It's been a raging topic of discussion. Will probably continue for the foreseeable future. I mean, we'll see what happens, I guess, legally with this sort of thing. Because that, like, questions of copyright are certainly up in the air, and, like, does it violate an artist's copyright to be used in, like, an AI data set? Because if it does, then, like, you enter a position where, like, legally you're only allowed to do it with the artist's permission and stuff, which could happen. Yeah, and, like, my final thoughts on this are, like, I don't have any strong opinions on this. My relationship with this is the same with other AI stuff, which is, you see this online every time a new AI thing comes out for the past, like, 8 years or so, where, like, a new AI text generator comes out and people type stuff into it to make it say funny things, and then screenshot it and put it, and then it's always boring to me, because I've seen it before. So, like, my first reaction to seeing this stuff was people typing in pictures, and I'm like, whatever, I don't want to see this.
Right.
You've done this a dozen times already, I don't care. So, I'm not, like, if it does interesting things, if people think it does interesting things, like, more power to them. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm just kind of like, I don't have any skin in this game.
I
don't feel the need to use an AI generator. I get both sides of the argument. At the same time, I'm like, dude, just if people think they're being creative, let them be creative. This is their form of expression. Let them do what they want to do. At the same time, I would hate for, money and the ability to make a living to be taken away from artists because of it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know that, in my opinion, I don't feel like digital artists are going to be replaced by this. And that has, like you said, the past several years always been a topic of discussion around any AI, is that it's replacing humans, and I just don't see that with this either.
The question isn't, like, is it going to replace them in totality? It's how many people will be able to make a living off of art.
Yeah.
Given that.
Yeah.
And I don't think the problems this present are wholly new, and I think the solutions to them are things that we should have already been discussing for years, about
Right.
copyright, which is a whole issue in like art theft that pre-existing issues that AI like butts into, and artists being able to make a living off of their work. Again, already a thing people struggled with.
Yeah.
And, maybe not being a visual artist paints my perception of that as being like, oh, well, this is like not anything new, and maybe like it feels much more like an existential threat if you're actually like trying to make a living doing this stuff. But, that's my perspective, not being a visual artist.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's definitely not new. We have the same discussions over and over, like every iteration that comes up, so I don't know. One day, will we get it right? Probably not. I just think for artists, I think it's a constant battle of adapting to whatever new technology comes out, and being relevant and being able to make a living. I think you have to be adaptable to whatever comes our way, so a constant challenge, I am sure, and not trying to dismiss, how digital artists feel, but I mean, I don't think this is going to take over all of their work. I really just don't feel that way. I don't think it's going to create such an inhospitable environment for artists. I just, but again, not a graphic artist, so not going to pretend to know how they feel.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting topic to discuss, so that's it.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird place to leave it on, where we're both kind of like, about it. Like, this is interesting, and some artists are really like upset about this topic. So
yeah, they are, and I get it. I definitely get it. But from my point of view, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not gonna use it, but whatever. I'm in the privileged position, I guess, to say that, because I'm not an artist.
I think we've said everything we're gonna say, so take us out.
All right, well, this has been Beach View. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to have you next time. Bye.
Bye.